Welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting for the City of Rapid City for Tuesday, February 24th, 2015. I'd like to start with a roll call and determination of quorum, please.
Estes? Doyle? Roberts? Scott? Wright? We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now is the time to adopt the agenda. If there's any changes or additions or omissions that need to be done to the agenda, I would entertain a motion by any of the seated committee members. If not, I would take a motion to adopt the agenda as is.
So moved.
Got a motion by Doyle to adopt the agenda, second by Roberts. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been adopted as written. Now is the time for general public comment. This is a time for any member of the audience to step forward and give their comments or opinions on any item that is currently not on the agenda today. I currently have no speaker request forms. Am I missing anyone? Seeing none, we're going to move on from general public comment. Now we're going to entertain public comment on consent items. Consent items are 1 through 16 on today's agenda. This is a time for any member of the audience to step forward and comment on any of the consent items, items 1 through 16. I currently have no speaker request forms. Am I missing anyone? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment, and we are now on to the consideration of consent items 1 through 16. On the agenda, are there any committee members? Our director from Public Works, Mr. Jeff Bigler. Would you like to pull one of the items, Mr. Bigler?
I would. Item number 16.
Mr. Bigler would like to pull item number 16 for separate consideration. Are there any other items off the consent calendar that committee members would like to have for separate consideration? Chair recognizes Alderman Estes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve all items 1 through 15.
Second.
I've got a motion by Estes to approve consent items 1 through 15 on the consent calendar, second by Doyle. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent items 1 through 15 have been approved. Item number 16, to authorize the Black Hills Farmers Market to use Founders Park for the 2015 season. Chair recognizes Public Works Director Jeff Bigler.
Thank you very much. The original recommendation for this item is for approval of the Founders Park area for the farmers market for the 2015 season. This is a request that comes every year before you for approval of the location. In the interest of efficiency and expediency, we think that it would be appropriate and certainly benefit both the Black Hills Farmers Market Board and also the Parks and Rec Department if we were able to approve this location for 3 years, the 2015, 16, and 17 season. And so that would be my suggestion and my request.
Seeing no questions from committee members, Jeff, if I can ask you a question on this.
Certainly.
If the committee would to consider this and approve this today, this 3-year permit would still be subjected to any public safety requirements or movements or postponements or anything else at this time?
Yes, we would be able to alter the location or the dates if need be in the future.
And then with this 3-year consideration that you're proposing for the committee members to consider today, the days of the listed days of the week would be forwarded to 2016 and 2017, and just the actual date of the calendar would be changed?
That's correct, yes. We would, our department would work with the farmers market each year for the exact dates, but it would still be the June through October plus the previous 3 Saturdays and the following 3 Saturdays, whatever those dates might be.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
If there's any other comments from any seated committee members, Chair recognizes Alderman Wright.
Would you like a motion to amend the contract to 3-year with the appropriate escape clause as developed by the city attorney? Permit, I'm sorry. Okay.
Is that a motion you're making?
Yes.
I've got a motion to adopt the recommended change for item number 16, which is to authorize the Black Hills Farmer Market to use Founders Park for the 2015 through 2017 season. I've got a second by Estes. And Alderman Wright would like that to be, specifically annotated that there is consideration for changes, adoptions, postponements due to public safety requirements. Any further discussion? Yes. Chair recognizes Alderman Wright.
There may be something other than safety, so I would just leave it as an appropriate cancellation as recommended by staff or something like that. There may be another event or something they may say, or, you know what I mean, just not just safety. Let's leave it open that if there's due cause, proper cause, we can escape with proper notice, not just safety, although it's number one.
Any further discussion from any committee members? Does everyone understand the motion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Bigler. We're now off of consent items on the Public Works agenda. We are now on to non-consent items. There are 2 non-consent items today. We are open to public comment on non-consent items. It's items number 17 and 18. I currently have no speaker request forms for public comments on non-consent items. Am I missing anyone? Seeing none, we're closing public comment on items number 17 and 18, which are the non-consent items. Moving on to item number 17. Item number 17 is the discussion on House Bill 1232, establishing a methodology to determine the value of small-scale electricity. This is being brought forward by Mr. Alan Anderson. Mr. Anderson, if you wouldn't mind approaching the podium, stating your name and your affiliation to the city. And you have roughly about 3 minutes to go ahead and tell us what's on your mind on this issue.
Thank you. My name is Alan Anderson. I live at 7774 Columbine Court. As you know, I was before the City Council last week with this same issue, and there was some concern that because the vote for House Bill 1232 was going to take place last Friday, that it may not be good timing to consider it then. So it was forwarded back here, and the mayor felt that because these bills sometimes recur, which is possible for next year, that it might be good to have the discussion anyway. And so I have, in the interim, I have drafted a resolution that is more generic. It doesn't just refer to that bill, and that's what is before you. And I've talked to the Director of Public Works, and I have attended the Sustainability Committee meeting last night here and talked to them generically about it. And the idea, I don't know what the procedures are as far as going forward with a draft resolution like this at this point, whether you can do that or whether you want to do that. But one of the ideas that was brought up, I think, by Terry was that it could possibly be referred to the Sustainability Committee for discussion and a little research and maybe looking at the wording and see if they would support that and then bring it back to you. That'd be a way of getting you more information on it and getting it on some sort of a calendar that would allow you to approve it or disapprove it and then maybe send it to the council. So that's kind of what's happened since, and I think that's perfectly fair and all right with me. I'd be willing to work with the Sustainability Committee to craft something that they felt was appropriate for you to look at. The timing crunch that we had last week is gone. You know, there won't be any legislation for another year, so we could take some time to do this in a deliberate fashion and come up with something that the city might be able to support.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. So the chair would like to recognize our Public Works Director, Mr. Wolsterstorff. Right now, we currently have a rough draft of a resolution that the committee could consider, or some other action can take it to the City Council meeting on Monday night. But Terry, your name was dropped as far as offering up an alternative. Would you actually need a motion from the committee to take this to the Sustainability Committee, or is it just a work in progress that would go back to that committee?
I don't think I would necessarily need a recommendation from the Public Works Committee or the or the council. My recommendation was to maybe send this through that sustainability committee. It seems to me like it's right up their alley and what they're kind of tasked to look at for us. So, perhaps you could have a simple motion that would acknowledge the report from Mr. Anderson and encourage him to pursue this with the Sustainability Committee. And I do know Eric Hikas was here, and maybe he wants to speak. He's on our Sustainability Committee.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah, at this point, public comment is closed. Is there any committee member that would like to call on Mr. Hikas? Chair recognizes Alderman Wright.
I do, and also as Black Hills Power Night, did you want to speak also? Did you fill out a speak? I would like to hear from both Eric and our representatives of Black Hills Power, if that's appropriate, Chair.
As a committee member, you can ask them any question that you want to
Thank
while
you.
this item is
Eric,
being
would
discussed.
you address your willingness to accept this as a task for the Sustainability Committee, or your viewpoint on it, please?
Eric Hikas, 1115 West Boulevard, chairperson of the Sustainability Committee. We saw the resolution at our meeting last night. Unfortunately, did not have a quorum, so we could not take any action. Like a lot of resolutions that come, we'd be happy to look it over. And our committee votes. There are 9 members. We carry a vote, and then if we concur that the resolution is aligned with some of our goals, which are environment, social, and economic by nature, we would then send it on to Public Works or Council with our endorsement. However, to be very clear, we would not help write the resolution or support it with legal. That's entirely up to the petitioner to create the document, refine it. I had to be clear. At one of our last meetings with the HEN ordinance, it was asked if we looked at the resolution. Yes, we did. Did we help modify it? No, that's not the job of our committee. So we are not the petitioners. So on a side note, I think this is a great resolution from the first draft that we saw last night. I think the renewable energy is the future in our community and across our country. I know that this does come on the backside of the renewable energy bill that went to Pier on Friday, which did not get supported. But I think this is a good consensus and perhaps a contingency for us in the future. So I'm trying to think of the right word here. Oh, it escapes me. But
Thank you. Alderman Wright, you still have the floor.
So we could refer this to your committee. You'd be willing to accept it, correct?
absolutely.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Keck, if you would share with our committee your concerns from the utility of Black Hills Power.
Sure, thank you. My name's Jim Keck, and I'm our manager of our key account program at Black Hills Power. And just specifically about the bill that was in front of at Pier this last week, the bill was to determine a new method for small-scale electricity purchase. And really, this is an education part of it about how do we purchase renewable power. And there really is a method established already that Black Hills Power incorporates. The Public Utilities Regulatory Policies Act established that in 1978, and that requires utilities to purchase renewable power at our avoided cost. And so that was discussed at Pier. We have a rate established for small commercial projects of 100 kW or less, and that would cover most of the solar projects that are out there. Anything above that, we would work between the customer and Black Hills Power to work out an appropriate rate close to our avoided costs. And that is, the avoided costs are the incremental costs above our energy and capacity charges. And it's oftentimes a wholesale rate. The one thing that was brought out at the hearing this last week is, say a new rate was established, then are the utilities required to purchase the power? And so that may not be the case. So that's one thing that you'd have to be careful of, and that we can take it to the Sustainability Committee. I think vetting it at that point would be very good to get all the issues out on the table. But the main thing is there is a method right now. It's a method established by federal law, and that we are following, and we file an avoided cost rate with the commission. So I guess I'd open it to any questions you may have.
Does Don want to add anything, or is that it? Thank you.
And Don Martinez is on the Sustainability Committee as well. So he'd be able to represent us there.
May I, before we turn over to questions of the guests to the committee, the one reason I have a little concern on this, or interest in a little history for this group and committee, is that a landfill by nature creates methane gas. And the Rapid City landfill built and installed a collection system in the 2010 era, and it came online in 2010-11, I think 2011, with the anticipation that that gas would be used or could be used as an alternative source of energy for the landfill. That if it was enough, it could be used to produce power, or it could be used possibly as a heating source. And we had analyzed that. At that point, it was all primarily theoretical, that if we had the ability to produce enough power to offset what we consumed at the material recovery facility, it would be a huge savings to us. And the other part of it is, if you're producing power on that type of operation, it's difficult to do it on a shift basis. You pretty much have to do it 24/7, because that's when the gas is produced. So the idea in the industry, and this is across the nation, and landfills in particular, where they have taken their landfill gas collection system, hooked them up to internal combustion generators, and they produce power for their use and wheel it off. And the whole point is, if you're producing power by using an energy that would otherwise be flared or wasted, you're producing a product and offsetting production or required power in other places. So the issue is, and I agree, Jim, this is all about there, and I think the whole discussion should be what is the best and easiest and fairest way to negotiate return rates, and obviously there's something available, and I think the discussion at the Sustainability Committee would be most appropriate. We do have an interest as a city, because we potentially could be in that driver's seat. Apparently our gas production is not what we thought it would be, and Terry can maybe address that, but I think supporting this discussion is important for us. Thank you. And I'll turn it over to the committee for questions of our guests.
Thank you. Before the chair recognizes the next committee member up here, just a reminder, the current item on the agenda is a discussion of a resolution or support of the House Bill 1232. That is basically dead on committee or dead in committee. So at this point, unless there is some type of committee action to address the actual resolution at this time, I believe we will only need to acknowledge the discussion, just to let everybody know where we're going with this. But the chair would now recognize Alderman Estes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll make a motion to acknowledge this, and if I get a second, I'd like to keep the floor, please.
Got a motion to acknowledge the discussion on establishing a methodology to determine the value of small-scale electricity brought forward by Mr. Alan Anderson, by Estes, second by Doyle. Mr. Estes, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, Mr. Anderson came to our council meeting last Monday, and I voted against it, and then I ran out and caught Mr. Anderson. And I just said, you know, I don't know enough about this, and it was moved to come to Public Works. And I said, I don't know enough about this tonight, and I doubt that between tonight and next Public Works, this is a big issue, and that I'm going to be smart enough to vote on it by Public Works. But we did go have a cup of coffee, and he yesterday, and he had this draft, and we talked about, how I thought something like this could go through council and stuff. But to me, we have kind of two issues. Number one, if we as a council support renewable energy, which I think as an elected official, I think I'm comfortable in deciding that. But the second issue is, do we as elected officials for the city get involved in trying to force people to sit down and arrive at a rate? And I'm not quite as comfortable being with the capacity I sit up here, being involved in that. So I just encourage, and the passion that Mr. Anderson has regarding this is just, it's overwhelming. But I guess as all I would do is encourage him to get with the Sustainability Committee and everybody look at it and let's see going forward, because as you spoke, what is on the agenda is the bill, and the bill's dead. So anyway, that's what I would encourage, and I'll just yield the floor with those comments. Thanks.
Chair recognizes Alderman Wright.
Would you accept a friendly amendment that we acknowledge and we forward it to the Sustainability Committee
The Public Works Director has already indicated there is no motion that needs to go to the Sustainability Committee. So acknowledging the discussion, it will automatically probably be taken up at the Sustainability Committee.
Probably, Mr. Chairman, are you willing to take it without a recommendation from us, or do you want to just? I want to make sure it gets there.
It's a question being posed, so we'll let Alderman Wright get his answer.
Can you read the record so I understand the question?
My question is, without direction from the council asking you to look at it, will you as a committee take this upon yourself to discuss and bring it back to us for recommendation, or with a recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
I have to be clear, I have to add, ours is not a bipartisan group. Ours is a bipartisan group. We have no liberal or swing to the. There's a bit of a perception that sustainability is a liberal thing, and frankly, it's not. Alternative energy is awesome. The rate as a discussion, I can tell you there are a few individuals on the committee that have a bias, and that may not always align with the goals of some of the other members. So it'll be a heated discussion, and we welcome that. Don is a liaison to our committee, Mr. Martinez, and there's, that's one aspect, and I'm just going to use this moment here, but the other aspect is we're one of 4 states left in the nation that still don't have an equitable buyback or net metering policy in place, and I think that in any kind of diplomacy or politics, if you follow the money, that motivates people to do good, and it also a lot of times motivates us to do nothing if the money isn't right. So finding an equitable buyback policy that can be adopted on a state level is our goal, but if we can do something at a city level that educates, that's another goal of our committee. That's a good starting point. And the word I was looking for was compromise. This is a compromise, a bit of policy here. So we're totally happy to try to make a recommendation with or without the Public Works. So comment or general consensus.
Since you're my guest on this question, I would certainly accept. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to come back with an absolute recommendation, do this or don't do this. I would say if you come back with a summary of your discussions for our consideration, that would be adequate also.
Sounds like a party.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I just want to remind the city, we do have an interest in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Alderman Estes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clear it up, as I could only make a motion that was relative to the item that's on the, in my mind, that on the item that's on the agenda. I believe I spoke, I really encouraged the parties to get together, so thanks.
Thank you. I currently have no other speaker lights from the committee members. We do have a motion on the floor to acknowledge the discussion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 18 is a discussion on the Autumn Hills Bridge. This is being brought forward by Mr. Jerry Marr. And sir, if you could approach the podium, please state your name and your affiliation to the city. And you have about 3 minutes to go ahead and bring us your opinions on this item on the agenda today.
Okay, my name is Jerry Mayer. I'm the president of the Autumn Hills Townhome Association. I'm here to represent all of Autumn Hills. We have a bridge out there that I've been fighting for many, many years to get painted. It's a cosmetic issue is all. A few years ago, the city did come out and take a look at it. They found some structural issues on it, and they fixed that, which is great. But it's a real eyesore for us, and we have a nice manicured development out there, and I just like to get that bridge painted. You know, I'd like to have some money appropriated. No other way to put it, I guess I'm here to beg for a few bucks. So, I've been after this for, I think, 7 years now, and it just seems that it always comes around to the issue of money to get it painted. To do it right, it needs to probably be sandblasted and painted and clear coat so it lasts for a while. That is all I have.
Thank you, sir. There is some committee member lights up on the dais. If you wouldn't mind answering or standing by to answer some questions, if any questions are directed at you.
Okay.
Chair recognizes Alderman Wright.
Thank you, Jerry. Jerry's a Ward 3 constituent. He called me on this, and the number one reason he's here is because I asked him to be. And the request is to have the bridge painted and fixed up because it is a city bridge. I know that that's normally the procedure because the DOT or the railroad wouldn't allow a neighborhood to paint their bridge. They would have to do it. So I think we need to figure out a way to get this done. I understand the problem is funding. Is that right, Terry? And
Chair recognizes.
And that's one of the reasons I want to bring forward is there are the needs out there, and obviously we don't have enough funding to meet all our needs. And it's a discussion of a bridge. I think we have probably, 20 bridges in our inventory. We do a bridge inspection, we do a bridge repair. What is our process in taking care of these bridges, but in particular this one? Have we got money to paint it?
Is that a question?
Do we have money to paint it? That's
Chair recognizes Public Works Director, Mr. Terry Walserstorff.
The quick answer would be, we have money allocated in the CIP for 2015 to do bridge repairs and maintenance. Keep in mind, we just received our bridge inspections that were done on all of our bridges. The exact number is in the range of 40, give or take a few, so we do have a substantial number of bridges in Rapid City to maintain. Of course, from a public works standpoint, our primary goal is to take care of the structural issues. We want to make sure that we have safe bridges. So we're currently reviewing those bridge reports, and I had relayed that information on to Mr. Mayor. In fact, when I talked to him last week, I had suggested he call us back maybe in May after we've had a chance to kind of put our game plan together for which bridges we were going to be maintaining and repairing this year. And from a priority standpoint, we want to do our bridge maintenance repairs of the structural issues called out in those bridge inspection reports. And then, you know, obviously if we're there doing some bridge work on this particular bridge structure and we have the money available in this year's budget, it would make sense while we're there to do some painting. Again, as he mentioned, it's really an aesthetic issue. Those upper members that extend above the bridge on this particular bridge are strictly aesthetic in nature. They serve no structural purpose whatsoever.
Chair recognizes that Alderman Wright still has the floor.
So, Jerry, let's wait and give them some time till May. Will you come back and either telephonically contact them or me and find out what the status is?
Okay, yeah, I talked to Terry a couple weeks ago and said I'd call him back in May, and I was just kind of hoping this would be an opportunity to stick a feather in our cap, try to get some funding for that bridge. It worked, like I said, I worked on it for a long, long time, and I'm sure people are getting sick of me, so I'd sure like to get it done.
Thank you very much.
Seeing no lights from any other committee members, Terry, just to follow up, couple questions on this. You're saying that the structures or the member structures above the structure are strictly aesthetic or for visual effect only. Is this the only bridge in Rapid City that has that amenities on it? Or
I think it probably is.
Okay, because the reason I asked is that I do know, just like we chip seal a lot of our streets and stuff, you know, when you paint something and you take the time to, as Mr. Marr had indicated, if you sandblast it and you paint it, you're actually extending the life of taking care of something. So I guess I just want to try to understand, if this is the only bridge that's got an aesthetically member on it, and there's nothing else is there, is that something that we need to kind of take a look at in the budget and set up a separate line item? I can't imagine it'd be that expensive, but I don't really know.
Yeah, I just think it depends on the extent of the work necessary for the painting. You know, we haven't had a chance to really go in there and take a hard look at what that cost is. You know, if we're talking $25,000 to paint the upper members, then at some point, if we've got other structural needs that need to be taken care of, I want to take care of those first. And that was kind of my point to Jerry, Mayor, is that let us get our priorities in place here first. Let us find out what we can do with our existing funding, and then we'll move forward from there.
Okay, thank you. And another committee member has put his light on. Chair recognizes Alderman Wright.
You're looking at funding to do as a project. There's a chance it could be done with city forces if there's no structural problems. And then the other question is, do we know for a fact that inverted V is a non-structural member? Okay. To restate my question, it's possible city forces could do it versus contract.
And there were two questions posed, and there was head nodding, and I don't know if the cameras caught it, so if you could weigh in on,
Sure.
you know, confirming that we are talking about an aesthetically and non-structural pieces above.
I did visit with Donnie Brumbar, Street Division Superintendent, week and a half ago, 2 weeks, when this issue came up. Really, it's a time issue. It's going to take a substantial amount of time of our crews, and that's going to take their time away from other things, pothole repair, that type of thing that we would do in the summer months. So I think the quick answer is no. Donnie did let me know that the last time those were painted, what he told me was the city provided paint to the homeowners association, and the homeowners association actually did the painting. Now, I don't know that I would propose or recommend that at this point. I'd rather wait and see what our funding looks like and how far we can go with the funding that we have. And then the other question, as far as the structural value of those upper members, there is no structural value to the upper members.
Thank you. Alderman Ryder. Thank you. Chair recognizes Alderwoman Doyle.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question for Mr. Wolterstorff, if I may. Yep. Terry, I'm just curious, by when do you think we can have that assessment on our bridge inventory, what we have and what we can do with it?
We're currently reviewing it internally to determine which activities called out on those inspection reports can be done with city staff, whether it be street department staff. Our stormwater utility maintenance staff may get involved because there will be some channel clearing upstream and downstream of the bridges. Those are some things that are called out in those inspection reports. So there's a lot of different work groups within the city that we're pulling in on this to see what we can handle internally, and then once we have that decision made, then we'll go through and we have to really prioritize, okay, which of these structural or inspection defects that are called out rise to the top of our priority list. And those are the ones we need to focus on first. So I'm hoping by May sometime we'll have some answers.
Is it fair to ask for just a report on that brought back so we don't let this just languish somewhere?
Yeah, I would say maybe by the end of May.
Okay.
So currently there is no motion on the floor. The item is for a discussion on this item. However, we can either acknowledge or we can go ahead and continue this item to another meeting in the future. I'm still waiting to hear from committee members. Chair recognizes Alderman Estes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I make a motion to acknowledge this report and ask Public Works to get back to us at the second Public Works meeting in May.
Could I
got a
speak? Excuse me, could I speak?
Only at this point if a committee member asks you a question, which they most likely will, but
Okay.
but hold on. Chair has a motion on the floor to acknowledge this discussion and to ask for a report to be brought back to the second Public Works meeting in May of 2015. I've got a motion by Estes, second by Wright. Alderman Estes, you still have the floor. Chair recognizes Alderman Wright.
For clarification, I assume the bridge report, not just this item, correct? Okay, thank you. Jerry, you have a comment?
Yeah, listen to Terry say there's no, I guess no other way to put it, except for the supports that I want painted. You know, there's nothing really structural with that bridge, but if you didn't have those supports there, it's quite a drop-off at the side of that bridge, down to the bottom of the gully there. And I would think that that does have something to do with the safety of going across that bridge.
Alderman Wright, you still have the floor? I'm done. All right. And thank you for your comment. I currently have a motion on the floor, and I have a second. Seeing no further lights, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion by Estes to adjourn, second by Doyle. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Public Works meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.